These are my top tips for classroom video projects. I actually would think that some of these are very obvious and I wouldn't need to point these out, but after doing a lot of video projects with students, I find myself repeating these many times. Alright, first of all, students do not like this, but I always suggest that we plan with a script and a storyboard. And I like to use this 2-column format where over here we have the script like you'd normally think. This would be like a skit. It tells what each person says. It has some direction notes, tells you where the scenes change, things like that. Then over on the left, I like to have the students describe in words anything important that you see here or other notes that you think the director would want to know. And also, very important, pictures of what's happening. Here's a picture of a set that we're planning, or here's a picture of some action. You don't have to draw everything, of course, but you will save a ton of time when you record and a ton of time when you edit. Before you go and shoot the scenes, be sure that you can edit the files that you're going to record. So, you might be recording with a camera, and then you would edit on a computer. If that's the case, we usually use Movie Maker on a PC. Sometimes we use Corel Video Studio. I recommend that one. If you are recording with an iPad, an iPod, or an iPhone, I always suggest iMovie, but it's usually $5 for that app. So if you want a free one, I've had some luck with Loopster. I don't have a ton of experience with students editing on an Android device, but I have read online that some people suggest Andromedia. And also, in the case of these devices, you can pull those off and edit them on a computer. And for the Apple devices, it's best to use iMovie on an Apple computer if that's an option. Alright, here's a big pet peeve of mine. This is usually a problem with devices, not with cameras, but when you're holding your device, do not hold it so that the device is recording a vertical image like this. We don't usually see computer monitors that are tall rather than wide. This is how the computer monitors would usually look. Or if you picture your TV monitor hanging on your wall, it's probably horizontal on your wall, not vertical. As soon as someone sees a video that looks like this, I think they're going to see that on YouTube and say, this person does not know what they're doing. So let's completely cross that off. I don't even want you to think of that option. It actually used to surprise me when students would come back and show me their video and they had held their device that way. I thought everybody would know that you want it to be horizontal rather than vertical, but apparently that's not so obvious because it happens a lot. Please remember, you want to hold your device in the horizontal or the landscape position when you record a video. When you plan your shots, think about the viewer. Keep the viewer in mind. Imagine this was a skit here in this picture, and maybe there was some action, maybe there was going to be a little bit of a scuffle and somebody was going to start fighting. Imagine what it would be like if you were way back watching this scene. This looks more like a skit, as if you were watching it on a stage, and some people will just start their camera and record the scene that way, and they won't even stop till all the action is done. I would rather have you think about what the viewer needs to see every second of that shot, and maybe you're going to stop the camera, you're going to zoom in on some things, you're going to change where you're standing, you're going to get some close-ups of faces so that you can tell the best story possible. Also, make sure that there isn't something in the background that the viewers would look at that would keep them from focusing on the important action. Now, in contrast to this, here are some shots that students did in one video, and I really loved it how they were changing the camera angles. We had some medium shots of the student running down the hall. We had some far away shots when they were way down the hall that added to a comedy effect, and then we had these close-ups. Those camera angles and all those changes made those few seconds of the video very entertaining. Pay attention to the audio. Listen to what's happening around you. Do that before recording. Make sure you're not out in the hallway where there's a lot of echoes, or if you're outside in the wind, try to get somewhere where the wind is not making a lot of noise, and especially pay attention to the audio during the recording. I have this picture here because this girl was dressed up like a bill going to Congress, and every time she moved, that paper would rattle so loud you couldn't even hear what she said. And she didn't even think of that, because in real life we tend to tune out those sounds, but the video camera isn't going to do that, your viewers aren't going to do that, it will be distracting. And last of all, speak clearly when you say your lines. Everybody on the set probably knows what the line was. They understand you. You got to think like the viewer. They haven't seen the script. Are they going to be able to understand what you're saying? Very important for editing later on. Leave time at the start and end of each shot. You notice here, this clip from iMovie, you can see that the scene probably started right here where you can see the audio wave start. That's probably somebody talking. And notice how there are a few seconds here that the camera was started before the action started. And that's so important because it is easy later on to drag that slider over and trim that extra part out, or maybe you need it. Notice the transition here. This is a dissolve. You need a few seconds if you're going to dissolve into a scene. If that person started talking as soon as the button was pressed, you wouldn't be able to do that dissolve, or maybe that important timing that you need to bring out. Usually what I would suggest is the camera person starts the camera and then says action, and then after a couple seconds the actors would then start the scene. Along those same lines, at the end of the scene, make sure that you don't stop the camera right away. You want to leave something that the editors can use if they need a little extra time after the action. Get a couple good takes if you have time. If I'm playing the role of the director, I like to say, that was really good, now do it one more time. Because it always helps to have 2 takes unless you're really pressed for time. Because then when you're editing, you have more than one option as you try to make the absolute best video that you can. Actors have to think about this. Don't look at the camera or the director when the scene is done. Notice this scene right at the end, the last couple seconds, both of those actors looked at the person behind the camera as if to say, did we get it? And that is a good way to mess up those extra seconds that the editors are going to need. So those are my top tips. This is my blog where I keep lots of information like this about videos, some things about music creation in the classroom, and creativity games. Be sure to check it out if you're interested in technology and education.